Good afternoon, everybody, or good morning, good evening, wherever you are in the world, or whatever your regions are. I'm Simon Heesam. I'm the branch chair for Edinburgh, and if I can just share my screen, I am just going to pop up a few slides. If I can find it. There we go. Hopefully that's going to come through. Hopefully we'll all see that. Somebody else late to join us. So we're just going to run through some quick welcome apologies, chairs updates. We won't look at a mentoring group reports. I don't think they've got anything to shout out about at the moment. Guest speaker and then some closing details. So I've only got one apology so far, and that's from our vice chair, Steve McCann, who's currently sat out on an oil rig somewhere out in the cold North Sea for his sins. So I hope he does well with that, and hopefully we'll get him back into the committee again soon. Is anybody aware of any other branch apologies? No. Okie doke, we'll move on. Quick chairs update from me. Attended a branch chairs meeting with IOSH last week, and the hybrid working, and everybody's champing a bit to get back to face-to-face. IOSH had a big workshop looking at this, and they are reviewing how best we can get through to start doing some face-to-faces again. As such, they're running a trial next year between January and April, and we're hoping to be able to run a face-to-face with the Edinburgh branch back at our old venue, fingers crossed, in March of next year for our first one, with a bit of luck on that one. Keep an eye on the program updates as they come out, and the committee mailers, etc., and that'll tell you what the subject is and confirm dates, times, etc., all those good things. So that's all I've got from my end at the moment. We've got another IOSH branch event going on in Scotland, and that's on Thursday 25th of November at 1300, and that's the West of Scotland branch, and they're going to be running a working at height, getting it right session. So please keep an eye out for that one and go and support our colleagues in the West of Scotland. We've got our main talk today, which is Duncan McNicol, City Building Engineering Services, and Safety Leadership Theory versus Practical Application. Liz, can I hand over to you? Just remind you you're on mute to introduce Duncan for us.
Okay, so I'm delighted to welcome Duncan McNicol, and as Simon says, he's currently the Head of Risk and Compliance for City Building Engineering Limited. His background primarily in the construction sector, a roofer to trade. He worked in project management prior to safety. He worked in health and safety since 2000, so 20 years plus experience. He delivers the IOSH leading safety within and external to business. He's a family man with 3 daughters, 2 still at school, and he's definitely not the leader in his house. Duncan, thanks very much.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, thanks very much. Thanks very much for inviting me along to your branch meeting. I think I've only done 2 or 3 of these ever, and every time I do them, Liz, it's very always find it's a different dynamic doing it in front of your peers. So go easy, everyone, would you, please? Let's see if I can share my screen if that's possible. Normally I'm on Teams, but this should hopefully work. Can everybody see that? Yeah.
Can we just, Duncan, just say, as you said, if people want to put questions on chat, we can ask you them as you go along?
Yeah, I'm quite happy with that. I think, you know, rather than waiting to the end, if you've got a burning question, sometimes I think if you wait to the end, you forget to ask the question. So quite happy to take them as they're coming along. So can everybody see the screen? Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Great. Thanks. So thanks very much for inviting me along. A wee bit of background on myself. You know, I have been in safety for the last 20 years. Leadership, I find a very interesting subject, and you know, I look at my own history and I reflect back on my own career. I've worked with some great leaders and I've worked with some poor leaders, I think when you start your journey in health and safety, it is a very interesting dynamic about how you move through the gears, and suddenly you find yourself, you're in a leadership position, and you're the one with the responsibility to drive the if you like, the corporate leadership strategy from a safety perspective and how you integrate that. So it can be challenging, and one that I'm still learning today. What I won't be able to tell you today is that smoking gun of how you become the best leader. I certainly wouldn't have that, and I wouldn't say our business is putting ourselves across there as industry leading. And I suppose really what I want to say is this is about CBES's journey and some of the things we've introduced and thought about and considered, which I'm sure the vast majority of people on the call will have considered as well. Okay, so city overview. Who's it I work for? You probably see if you're about the UK, you'll see quite a few of our vans up and down with the city logo. We do a lot of work in the facilities management sector. We do quite a lot of hard and soft FM activities, and you can see with some of the stats there, we're a fairly large organisation. Certainly the vast majority of the 15,000 colleagues are in the kind of cleaning side, but we've got a huge amount, over 2,000 plus on the engineering element of it, technicians that will do building services, if you like. So it's a lot to manage. It's a lot within the group to show leadership with, and we operate in a number of various sectors. So we do across the globe. We work for people like Marks and Spencer's, Asda's, Co-op. Over in Australia, we're in Coles. We'll do 7-Eleven in places like America and whatnot. So trying to get that unified approach across the business can also be pretty challenging, So your systems and processes need to be quite robust, and your people need to be on it in terms of your values and the vision, what you're trying to get across. The piece I look after, after I've given you the introduction there of the large business, the piece I look after is effectively almost like the construction engineering section of the holdings group. So I'll work within the UK in its totality. We have, I think I've got on the board there, 6 locations across the UK. So offices in every country within the UK. Sizable turnover. I'm sure there'll be people on the call in bigger businesses. But our activities are in the high risk industry. We do a lot of work in the construction sector. I would say we are specialisms in retail fit out. That brings challenges in terms of working in live environments, a lot of night shift activities, because we can, if you like, upset the status quo with customers going into retail premises. And a lot of our clients have vast estates, which have their own challenges in terms of asbestos, age of the estate, accessibility, and as I said, programme and whatnot. We also work in other sectors. We do work for people like British Petroleum in the petrol retail sector. And from time to time, we'll build things from you, but not often. The vast majority of what we do is kind of retail fit-out specialists. Okay. So that's kind of what we do and some of the challenges. In terms of those 670 colleagues, we'll have broadly about 250 of them, maybe slightly less than that, what we would call tech and van, who would be maintenance people as well. So we'll operate as a principal contractor on construction design and management projects, or projects that fall under those regulations when we build things, but we'll also have an FM capacity within our business. So from a leadership perspective and getting communication out, effectively we've got men in van located across, or people in vans located across the whole of UK. So to try to get your messaging out there can be fairly challenging. Okay. However, today we're here to talk about leadership. And when you look in Oxford Dictionary and Cambridge Dictionary, it can be quite difficult to pin down an actual definition. And if you look through some of the theories and research behind it, it is quite difficult to pin that down. So lots of people have theorised what it is. So in summary, it would seem to me like it involves individuals influencing other individuals for a common aim, which can be pretty challenging when you start off in your H&S career. You know, I'm sure all of you will echo within your career just now. You start off in quite a compliance role, but actually what you find as you move through the years, it's about, you know, it's about how you enable people and engage with people so that they have a desired outcome to you know, keep the good behaviour up, or improve and understand the pressures that are on a business to ensure we have good safety practices, if that makes sense. Okay. And my next bullet point here is really about, you know, you may well have leader in your title, but it doesn't necessarily make you a leader, you know, and leaders need to have followers, but you have to have, you know, an element of credibility for people to follow you, if that makes sense. Okay, and if you take my point with Andrew Carnegie and what he says, no man will make a great leader who wants to do it all for himself or get the credit for doing it. And the reality is the successes you have as a business will be your team's successes, will be your operators out there, it'll be the people out with, if you like, you know, yourself that will drive those improvements, drive the successes and show that leadership. Hopefully that makes a bit of sense. And I've put something else up there with Euripides there. You know, the problem with being a leader is you're never sure if you're being followed or chased. And sometimes when I reflect on you know, what I look after myself within the organisation, sometimes it can feel like that, isn't it? You know, so I thought I put that up as a bit of a contrast. So it gives you an insight in terms of what life was like in 450 BC, doesn't it? A bit more challenging potentially. However, it's interesting over the last 2 years, you know, talking before the call, you know, in the middle of this pandemic, you know, the amount of businesses that have shown fantastic leadership across the period has been outstanding. It really has. Okay, so I've put this up here, guys. And in my head, when I wanted to pose this question, you know, I had Barack Obama, had Theresa May, had all these people who were great leaders. You know, but there's a reason why people make it to you know, running a country or running an organisation or being the you know, the lead in a certain environment. I don't know if you've used Slido before. You can either do this two ways. You can either point your camera at the screen, and the QR code will pick out the question, okay, or you can put in the number on the website with slido.com. So we'll let that run for a couple of minutes and see what comes up. So picture a great leader and what leadership traits do they possess. That could be your, you know, a manager in the sports field, for instance, you know, a great Olympian, or it could be your boss or a previous boss. That's interesting. Integrity coming up. I'll let that run for a few more seconds. I think we're 20. I think we've got 74 on the call, I believe. So some strong themes coming out there, yeah. I was actually going to show a slide with some leaders up there, and I thought it might be a bit contentious in case someone didn't agree with some of the leaders that were up there, you know, but they're certainly either leaders of countries or in their own right. So I steered away from it, so apologies for that. Okay, so I think let's maybe leave it at that. So there you go, you've got honesty, integrity, humility really kind of striking out there. Respect, compassion, being trustworthy, empathy, charisma. So, you know, some absolutely, and I would agree with most of that, to be honest with you. I think, you know, leaders you have to confide in and be able to go to. So they have to show humility and honesty, and I get that. And to follow direction from leaders, for me, you need to have some respect for the people either you're working for, the people that are leading the charge. And I think that makes a lot of sense. I'm sure you agree with so. And then some of the other ones, respect both directions, absolutely. Care, openness, authenticity, conviction, great stuff. Good. So it's quite interesting. I'm not sure how much you use Slido. I've just started using it. I think it works quite well. So I'm going to move on to my next slide. And the reason I wanted to kind of talk in these terms was when you first start your health and safety career, effectively you read all these management books. I think, Liz, you'd said that, you know, effectively I worked through this, you know, started off life actually as an architectural technician, and moved into roofing because the company I was working for went out of business, and thought it was a short-term stop. So much short-term that I've stayed in the construction industry for pretty much the rest of my working life, and I've thoroughly enjoyed it. But when you first start your career, you know, when you start doing your studies and getting your qualifications, you learn all about these theories. And these theories are theory. The real trick is how do you get that into practice, which is a real challenge. And it'd be interesting when you look at, I'm sure you'll recognise some of the names up there, and I wouldn't dream of going into all these theories at all in any detail, because I'm sure you probably on the call will know far more about them than I will. From a safety perspective, in accident prevention or motivational theories, I'm sure you recognise people like McGregor X and his Y theory, Hertzberg about, you know, his motivators and hygiene factors, Maslow and his hierarchy of needs, you know, why people want to do certain things, and that need for betterment, you know, once you have once you've sustained your basic needs, if that makes sense. But if you take these theories, it'd be interesting to see what some of the early theories, people like Taylor and Fayol, who were looking at scientific management, what they thought of the previous slide there when we spoke about integrity, honesty. It's a shift over the last 100 or so years into understanding that, you know, if you take Covey's, you know, 4 dimensions and you know, these people-centered principles, etc., how that really has taken on. So to be a good leader, some of the words that come up there about it being empathetic, about, you know, honesty, integrity, you know, you also have to be a good communicator. So these all become hugely important, and I thought it was just interesting coming from the angle that, you know, we read about these things when we start, but as you move through your career and as a business, your job and a role as a safety person is to influence your business in a direction that shows this either safety excellence, leadership, etc., etc. And it's no mean feat, it's a challenge. Okay, and that's not to say our business is there with that either. I'm just putting it across. Okay, so competency and traits in leadership. I thought I would put this up here, and I'm assuming that most people, you know, on the call will be, you know, some sort of membership of IOSH, or thinking about it, or coming on as a guest and thinking about it. Well, what do you sign up to when you sign up to be an IOSH member? I think I've been a chartered member since 2003. I think I was quite lucky enough to join. It was quite a short transition from going into, well, that's wrong, it was a member, isn't it? I think it was some time later on it became chartered. But when you sign up to that, effectively you sign up to show these leadership traits, you know, and it's interesting with the words that came up on that word cloud there. Integrity, respect were 2 things that kind of shone out very strongly. So it's important to understand that, you know, when you're looking after a business, you're looking after risk and compliance and safety and health, you know, what you're signing up to. You know, we sign that charter to make sure that we're delivering that. And then you look at how business looks at leadership. And if we put up the framework there for the Institute of Directors, which is really looking at businesses across the UK and the cognitive framework that as a leader within a business you should really have, influencing, communication, you know, leadership there with a wider banner, having ethics, so that chimes of what we're talking about with, you know, the integrity piece, etc. Aware of self and others. So I think someone had up there, you know, that it's a two-way street effectively. You need to be professional. So having the knowledge is one thing, but these human skills, they're saying, are in equal parts. People talk about soft skills, don't they? I think I like to talk about it in terms of actually just being a good human being, and that takes it takes a bit, you know, it's a habit you kind of have to get into being a leader, you know, get into that mindset of what that looks like. And I wanted to overlay it with the competency framework which IOSH have. So when you first get into health and safety, or when I first get into health and safety, the role was, you know, I worked for a consultancy initially until I got up to speed with the knowledge. So a large proportion of what I did was all around compliance. It was looking at scaffolding, it was looking at audits and whatnot. It wasn't until I eventually came into a business that the realization that you have to steer the business in a certain direction, you know, or maintain it in a certain direction, because when I started in this business, I was already in a good position, I would like to think, you know, but we had to build on some of the systems and processes. But when you look at the competency framework here, what's it asking the modern day safety professional to have in their armoury? You know, so you know, for me, the technical piece should really be there. That's about, you know, practicing, you know, your qualifications and getting out there in the field and doing your day-to-day job. The strategy planning bit is the hard bit, and then coupled with that behavioural aspect about the communication, personal performance there, and that ability to work with others, but not just work with others at your level. It's work with people who are above you within the organisation and the people out in the field that are doing the operational roles. And that can be so it's a difficult challenge to work between, but that's a leader's role. You still with me, team? Yeah, you still there? Right, okay. So we talk about culture quite a bit in health and safety as well, don't we? You know, people there, that company's got a great culture, or well, that culture could be quite better. So your business is this is the observational piece within your business. So what's the culture like? And it's quite difficult to pinpoint what that is. And you can probably only pinpoint that through your metrics and things that are happening, you know, at the end of month in terms of, you know, your reporting, or end of year or quarterly reports of how you do that. You measure some of that, don't you, in terms of what's my culture like? It can be quite a difficult thing to do. And I've put in there some bullet points, you know, how do you shape a culture? Well, first of all, for me, you have to set the right environment. But it's about the people within that environment. It's the processes there as well. It's everything that goes along with you know, effectively how you deliver that. So I've put a number of things in there. I think for me, from a leader perspective, hopefully you thought that was quite intuitive there, because it took me a while to figure out how to do that on a slide. You know, the behaviours that leaders need to exhibit to get to that, to shape the culture. You know, it's within their gift to do that, and you need to keep at it. It's a habit. So it is about role modelling. You know, I'm, you know, what did we say, 20 plus years within, you know, the safety arena. I'm 30 years within the construction sector. In fact, I'm moving out into different sectors now because of where the business is effectively. But, you know, I've got a team of 10 safety advisors and stroke managers within the business. You know, I've got people who are at grad level. I've got people who have, you know, been chartered for a long time. So even within one team, it's about bringing these people, you know, through. And it's great seeing new people come in with fresh ideas and a different way of thinking. but also the challenges they face that you would have faced when you were, when you were younger as well. And even I see it when, we must have circa 200 project, maybe a bit less, maybe around about 150 project managers within our business. And I've done that role before myself. So trying to integrate, the safety aspects, the operational aspects, the management piece that goes along with that. Everybody has had challenges, and that's the leader's role there, is to make sure that you coach and mentor as much as you possibly can. You won't have all the answers, but for me, it's about being able to take a step back and guiding people in the right direction. Sometimes it's about just being a sounding board and listening. I think that's something I'm starting to learn myself, actually, is the person that's in control of risk and compliance for the business. It's not all about my opinion. It's about listening to other people's opinion and then maybe making a call on it.
Duncan, I've got a question for you. Yep. Do you want me to take it now?
Yeah, that's fine.
Does IOSH need stronger emphasis on the ethics of the profession?
Okay. Well, I'll tell you where I am, and from a business perspective, I suppose I can't really comment from IOSH. This is a professional institute for occupational health and safety advisors, isn't it? So absolutely ethics needs to be there. There's no doubt about that. The world that I live in just now, working for the big retailers. So there's big corporate blue chip companies out there who we work for. They expect a supply chain. We would be a supply chain member of that to be ethical organisations. We're just off of COP26, if you like, within Glasgow. So clearly, all your businesses, I'm sure if you like, the hot topic just now is about net zero and the environment, etc. But it all comes under that sustainability, the corporate social piece, etc. Health and safety absolutely has a leg in that. So absolutely, so about ethics. What is ethics? Ethics about employment rights. Ethics is about making sure we get the right decisions, that when we put people to work, we put them to work safely. So to me, IOSH has always been in there about ethics. I put up the code of conduct earlier on, and it talks about how ethically you should be operating as a professional. I don't know if that quite answered it, but absolutely it needs to be front and centre.
Yeah, if I can just butt in quick on that one for you, Duncan, it's Simon again. Just to answer Simon, Mr. Ross's question there as well, I believe with the new change in membership grades, the blueprint and the CPD work that's being done in the background, there is going to be an ethics module that chartered members and chartered fellows are going to have to sit and go through and pass as part of their membership grades. So yeah, IOSH has recognised that stronger emphasis on the ethics of the profession through your professional membership.
Yeah.
So sorry, but
that's okay. Listen, I mean, I'll just pick up on that. I've got the vast majority of my life is about completing pre-qualification questionnaires just now, and I'm sure that'll resonate with a lot of safety professionals on the call. So it seems to be quite tedious. It used to be, when I first got into the profession, that it was a lot of the questions were safety orientated questions. Then it moved on to the environment. Now it's about communities and sustainability and everything that goes along with that. So, these questionnaires are becoming longer and harder to do, and your bank of standard answers seems to be growing arms and lengths as well. So absolutely, what do clients want out there? Clients want to operate with ethical partners. There's no doubt about it. Okay. And then, the last bit I've got there, what the leaders attend to, measure, reward and control. So what questions leaders are asking out there within the business. I'll report, I've got my board meeting tomorrow, so my scorecard will go up. There's a certain level of detail. You don't get too much time in the board meeting because they'll talk about a lot of things within there. But absolutely, I'm front and centre. I'm right at the start of it. All our conversations is a safety first conversation, which you'd expect is probably a good trait of a mature organisation. And what do they want? They want to know headlines. They want to know, are we in control? Are we, are systems being followed? What are our safety risks, etc., etc.? Because they become reputational and business risks. There's no doubt about that. Yeah. Okay. So I'll just move on there. You know, getting back to that point about leadership, what is it? Well, it's a way of behaving. It's a way of you know, how you come across, how you act, and how you communicate. You know, people will look at yourselves as professionals, and you will set the standard. So it's about exhibiting those good habits and continuing with that message the whole time, whether I'm a managing director in a business or whether I'm, you know, a lead on safety. You know, it's our responsibility to make sure we're consistent with that messaging. So that's kind of what we wanted to talk about from that perspective. So it's about leading, motivating, and engaging.
Duncan, I've got another question for you. Somebody says, thanks for the presentation so far. What percentage of their time would you advise safety leaders to spend on the front line learning what the work actually looks like?
As much as you possibly can is the answer to that. Okay, I'm certainly one of the people of the opinion that, you know, unless you understand what your business does, you'll be in no position to provide advice to your business. And that means, for me, being on site with the guys who are installing, you know, the distribution systems that we install, the pressure systems that we put into, you know, Asda supermarket or Marks and Spencer's or whatever, you know, how they do the pressure test and the time. So I'm not in that technical trade, okay, which gives me a gift, which means I can ask the most silly question I can possibly ask and no one will think ill of me for a period. And if I keep asking that same question, they'll quickly realise that I'm probably a lost case. But I think absolutely it's about understanding, and also understanding what your other departments do within your organisation as well. You know, that competency framework there, I think for me, is about, you know, understanding business. I don't think the safety professional should be limited to you know, being the expert. Well, they absolutely should be the expert in their own field, but you need to understand how we interact with other departments, because that's how it works. It's a collective. You know, when I look at my own team and how they integrate with their business, you know, I would like to think, and I know that they're involved right at the planning stages for our projects, which means we're in with our design partners, architects. It means we're in with the people who are doing the project management, that by the time we get to site, we've generally linked very well with the project delivery team to have a reasonable outcome at the end of it. So you've thought about the main. Now, that's not to say things don't happen, of course they do, and that's when, as leaders, you have to consider how you know, I just went back a couple of slides there, you know, leader reaction to critical incidents. So things will happen. It won't always be rosy in the garden, but it's about having a pragmatic approach and a calm approach to when things do go wrong, that you've considered the best way out of that. You know, has the business done what it should have done? Is there anything we can learn from that? You know, we had an incident recently, you know, I won't go into the ins and outs of it, one of the big retailers. And they've started doing calls with us now for them, which is the right thing to do. You know, one of the top 2 retailers in the UK. So we're sitting with an incident which no one got injured in, but it was a very small fire through a hot working process that happened. And we did the root cause analysis and everything that goes with that. And what was quite refreshing, even from the client perspective, it was great. We all sat in the call with the safety team, the project management team, and you know, there was no pointing finger, there was no blame culture. They asked a question, is there anything we could have done as client to help you in that situation? And I thought that's a real step change over the last, you know, the last 10 years in terms of the approach to that. So that open loop piece about no blame, which I thought was outstanding. Okay, I don't know if that answered that, did it?
Yeah, we've also got another one, Duncan. What value do you attribute to spending time completing spot audits on engineers compared to carrying out conversations with them around their feeling about safety leadership?
It's a bit of a blend. It's interesting. We're going through our investors and people piece just now. It comes around every 3 years. And they're all about leadership. You know, the message that they have is, well, they'll interview I think we'll interview 35 of our people in this tranche. They ask, it's a random selection of people, and they ask about the visions and the values of the business, and then they ask about leadership. And the mindset behind it is that everyone within our business is a leader. You know, if I'm the joiner who's putting the door set on the door, then, you know, it's my job to lead in that given role and act as a leader within my business. Same as the managing director, same as the safety team, if that makes sense. So we implemented things. Actually, it was when we were doing works with the petrochemical guys. It was we called it, oh my goodness, we called it safety conversations. So we used to write in our audits that we had a safety conversation because that's the way the petrochemicals kind of liked it at the time. But actually, it's a good mindset, and we continued it on. So we had the discussion, etc. But as you know, within the construction industry, we'll do a lot of engagement, toolbox talks, workshops, etc., etc. And they all add value. I think it's quite hard to walk around and do an audit in any case without speaking to people. It's the most humane thing to do, of course. And you know what? You need to be interested in what people do as well. And I think that's the correct thing to do, just be genuinely interested in how people do things, because you can pick up a few handy tips if you're doing DIY, I tend to think. Okay, so hopefully that made a bit of sense there. I mean, this next slide is about, INDG 417. So it's kind of set up there from the HSE perspective as the kind of blueprint for leading safely. So I've got a whole load of text coming up in some of these slides. I ain't going to go into them in huge amounts of depth. But what do they say? What does the HSE recognise as? And this is jointly produced by the Institute of Directors. What do they say as the key principles that need to be in there? I think strong and active leadership. Absolutely, and that's kind of coming across in some of the questions, isn't it? Worker involvement. You're not going to get anywhere without speaking and getting into dialogue with people and understanding either frustrations, challenges, successes, or things that have went wrong. That needs to happen. It absolutely needs to happen. And then you need to understand through your audit processes, through the training programs that you run, etc., how that how that happens. And you need to understand what's your direction moving forward once you've done your review of that. Okay, so I think that's quite important, and that leads you on to enabling your businesses or your operations team, your delivery teams, to be equipped with the right training, the culture, etc., that they're enablers themselves, and that people are engaged. So our structure will be, I'll have my board meeting tomorrow, and I'll have my operational management team meeting the week after, and then we'll have divisional team meetings. And every one of those meetings, safety is first on the agenda, and we go through an action plan, and that drives some of the continuous improvement. I probably wanted to talk about that in a couple of slides there, but I'm not good at following slides. You probably realise that, guys, yeah. Okay, and these are some of the components which effectively are put together for how do you create that culture. And the reality is it takes a lot of time, investment, dialogue, and process matching up to get to it, and it's not to say this is the right way, it's just my view, what I think should, what are the if you like, some of the key elements that need to be there about your culture. We'll have a plain and simple vision. What are we trying to achieve? Who is it you're trying to engage? We have a supply chain of 2,000 suppliers. I might not be wholly accurate with that, but it won't be far away. So, and we rely, when we build and do our engineering, we rely on a huge amount of a supply chain. 50% of our supply chain, going back to ethics and corporate social responsibility, 50% of our supply chain will be small to medium-sized enterprises. They won't have a team of 10 safety people within their organisation. There'll be 1-2-man bands. There'll be various. So we kind of support these people as well, and bring them on the journey with us. I think that's important. We will, like all your business, you'll have a pre-qualification questionnaire, and you'll ask certain key criteria that you have a policy, you undertake risk assessments, etc., etc. And when we go through that, it's yes, we'll have the basics, but we don't just turn our contractors and supply chain away from that. We tell them what they need to get to and and steer them in the right direction, how to get it. And sometimes we assist them with that, and I think that's right. The messaging I've said is about, concise, clear, and then often, I think, is important, okay, and consistent messaging. It's the right message all the time, that it sinks in the right way. Your modus operandi are either, open and closed loop, about that no blame culture, that people will come forward with issues and problems and raise that. Where we do have incidents and accidents, that it can be it can be discussed openly. I think that's important, so you can you can pick up lessons learned, and then your own barometers, your scorecard will tell you how good or bad or indifferent you actually are. I think everybody starts off at the start of the year with the intention of having 0 accidents. And I'm not one of these evangelists that will sit, by the side and say, listen, we're going to, you will have accidents, things will go wrong. And I think your maturity as an organisation is about how you lean into that and move forward, and learn those lessons, distribute them, and make sure that they're cascade. Okay, I put this up. I don't really want to spend huge amounts of time on it, because I'm probably using up quite a bit of your time already. You checking the watch there, Simon? How long did I have, Liz? I don't know how long.
Duncan, I think since you're taking questions as you go, you can run all the way up.
No worries. Okay. So I put this up. This comes from the IOSH Leading Safely course, and it's used as an exercise within. It's used within an exercise for the small to medium size to the very large companies. So we'll have managing directors and whatnot on these courses, and they'll ask them to pinpoint, where do they think their models of safety are. So clearly to the left, being embryonic, it's a bit less mature and defined. Whereas if you go far along to the right-hand side, it's pretty integrated. And I'd like to think, I can see commonality within all of these models of safety within our own business. And I would like to think I'm probably pretty well integrated, or at the very least kind of proactive. But I would say that because I lead on safety within the organisation. Okay, so I've probably got a kind of skewed mindset on that myself. But it's interesting to reflect on your own, and that's the whole point of that course. When we talk about leading safely, it's about senior people in organisations looking at their own, where they are in their status, understanding their gap and where they need to be to move forward to get to that. Yeah. Okay. And I've picked out some of these elements of maturity. Pretty much all your businesses will have some form of safety management system, and some of that will be accredited. Some of it will be fully integrated with your environment, your quality piece, etc., your IT systems and whatnot. So you expect to see that, okay? And how evolved or simple or complex that will really depend on your organisation. The workforce culture, we discussed how you build that and how you really impress on that. Well, that can sometimes be the sword you fall on, depending on what happens. So it's important you build that culture, and then that your leaders, the question that we had earlier on there, direction, commitment, that it's obvious. It's only obvious if you're out in the field or in discussions and meetings with your stakeholders. And you're discussing these things. It's a risk. If you look at your risk register for your organisation, I'm sure you all do. There'll be loads of safety aspects in there linked in with insurance and threat of legal action, etc., etc. So it's a key component of how we deliver business in the modern day. Absolutely. So to me, these are some elements of maturity. Okay. And I put this up as well, HSE organisational maturity, and I use this on the course, and I ask the delegates effectively, where do you think your business is, in that respect? And most businesses, if I'm just looking around the screen just now, I'd be very, very surprised if the people on this call have a business got a lack of management. The reason you're at this meeting is probably you work in health and safety or get an interest in it. Okay. When I look at safety management within our own business, I think we're a pretty competent organisation. I do think we've got some good a good handle on safety leadership. Again, I would say that, and I think there's some elements of excellence and some where absolutely we need to be a wee bit better. Okay, so that takes me on to my next slide, guys.
Duncan, do you want me to? There's another couple of questions just came in.
Yeah, that's fine.
First? Somebody's asking, what does L2BL stand for?
Lessons to be learned.
Right. Sounds me.
I know, do you know what? It's just, safety's full of jargon, isn't it? And acronyms, yes.
And the next one is, if you take on the health and safety aspects of the smaller suppliers and supporting them, are you effectively responsible for their health and safety?
I wouldn't say so. No, not from a legal sense, isn't it? You know, ultimately, under the Act, employers and employees and businesses and those controller premises, etc., have legal responsibilities. So, and you can't discharge those in that respect. So, and we all know every business has a need to have competent advice as well, don't we? Okay. However, I think within the spirit of it, it's about understanding what resources your supply chain has available to them. We've got I've got small contractors who, when I first joined our business in 2004, particularly in engineering trades, it's the same contractors that still support all the way through. I think that's fantastic. When we go back to ethics and corporate social responsibility, I think that's a great story for our business. I think it's great. Okay, so I've put that up there, and it seems to me, people are adding to that. That's great. Safety leadership, safety management adoption. So it's interesting, isn't it? Competent organisation. I don't know if safety excellence has actually come up there, and I probably should do the maths and the arithmetic and count all that up in terms of the total for 100. But you can see there, safety management adoption, that's kind of where the large proportion. So you're on that journey, and trying to get to that safety excellence. And I don't think that's wrong. I think it's important, the leaders within an organisation understand where they are, and then what's the gap then? What's that slice that needs to be filled to take forward? Okay. So safety leadership goes up as I'm speaking there. That's brilliant. Good. Okay, so it gives you the kind of where things are. So I'll move forward. I'm conscious that I'm taking up quite a bit of your time, guys. So this is about our roadmap and where we're on. As I said right at the start, I wouldn't say our business is experts in this. We're on our own journey. You should always continually strive to improve. I'll have my own team meeting on, I think it's the 9th of December, and we'll do the usual stuff that you'll do. We'll do the where did we get to for end of year and our thoughts on next year and what's going to be in the board report that goes upstairs, and what's the key things we're going to be working on that's going to continue that strive for improvement. So it's a journey, but the journey needs to be with the vision in mind, and that vision should be as simple as possible. And for us, it's about making sure our workforce, our people, our colleagues, our customers, our stakeholders go home safely every day. It's as simple as that. It's not too difficult. It should be supported by, key values that empower people. Get back to that, engage. So everyone in our business should understand that, if something's not right from a safety perspective, they've got that empowerment to call it out, to do the right thing and not compromise, and they'll be supported 100%. And your leaders need to be saying that message often and consistently. And that's, to me, how you drive some of that, yeah. And that's only achieved by being on site, the visible, leadership, the engagement, the training that we do. We train our own people. The reason we train our own people through accredited things like IOSH courses and some of the other courses is because we can install some of those values within the training sessions. That we can bring in our own systems and processes, etc. And we think that's pretty helpful, but we have to reinforce it. If I go and sit in an IOSH course, I think it's every 3 years I have to revisit that. So there has to be something in between. Proportionate management systems. It's not been having 30 pages when 1 page will be enough. I think that's that, and we're very good at delivering projects and engineering services. The people we employ have got a very good technical understanding, but they're not poets or lyricists or authors. They're professional people, and it's about driving continuous improvement and having a handle on what your barometers are. What's your output telling us? Okay. And I won't go into any detail on this. This is about how we deliver. You'll recognise this if you're in the things have moved on now to plan, do, check, act, haven't they? But this was the old HSG 65 model that I'm sure the safety professionals will recognise on the call. You set your policy, you establish who's going to do what within your organisation, and you go and do it. Okay, and then from a measurement and review perspective, your accident incident rate, your near miss reporting, the number of workshops, training that's undertaking, etc., are all barometers of some of those leadership traits, aren't they? I really think, yeah. Okay. And I suppose that's some of it in evidence. It's leading from the front. I think that was what came up in the words cloud earlier on, leading from the front. It's about having your leaders out there talking the message and understanding what the challenges are out there and listening to people. There's nothing better than listening to the guy's challenges, because it gives you an insight in terms of how you can make things better. And often the solutions will come from the people at the front, I find, yeah. Okay. I put that in there. I don't really want to go into any detail on it. The reason I put that up there is that's the scorecard that my managing director goes up to the CEO with. So within our if you like, our group, our CEO challenges the business unit managing directors to have their own safety scorecard. And you'll recognise these as some of the things you'd expect to see at high level. We've got different scorecards in my board meeting, if you like, but at high level, where are we with inspections and audits? Where are we with our AFR and accident frequency rates, etc.? Where are we with workshops and engagement? CSR, we spoke about, about supporting our supply chain and training in these areas. What is our causes of accidents? What does that look like? And then what's the zero harm mindset? What initiatives do we run, etc. So it'll give this most senior person in our organisation a bit of a flavour of how risk is being controlled within the organisation. Okay. And then this is just really my closing slide. So you'll be thankful to hear, applying leadership to safety and health. Okay, it's about understanding your capability and capacity to deliver that. Where is the gap and how capable are we with doing that? Do we have the right teams, the processes, the systems and structures that support that? And then consideration for effective health and safety, setting the right culture, absolutely. Focus on the right risk. Proportionality, I think, is absolutely important. It's not about going after every single thing. What's the big hitters that we need to be considering? And I've got the base decisions and reasonable foreseeability, and the governance piece around that, which is really your audit and review element of it. I think that's, these are key for effective health and safety leadership. And I'll leave you with this, okay? There's a spiritual leader, if ever, the Dalai Lama. Never follow someone else's path unless you're in the woods and you're lost and you see a path, then by all means you should follow that. So I've just confused the life out of you. I think the point is there's great role models out there in business. Your peers that are around the call today will be able to direct you if you're lost. But by the same token, whatever systems, processes, culture, make it fit your business. I think that's the important thing from a leadership perspective. I think that's everything that you shoehorn in needs to be appropriate to your organisation for it to work, doesn't it? And the messaging needs to link with your organisation. I think that's all I've got for you. I don't know if there's any more questions.
There's no more questions, but a big thanks for a informative and excellent session, Duncan. I was going to ask you one. How do you think how much impact do you think COVID's had on the path of safety leadership?
I think it's been huge. You know, I think, and I can only speak personally on that. And when I looked at, you know, was it March previous year, you know, when all, you know, as a professional, you really were challenged because it was a safety risk that nobody really knew about, and you were relying on scientists, and I'm not a scientist, to understand, you know, what that. So your systems and processes really had to adapt very quickly. We had to get people out of offices, and you know, we were critical to the national infrastructure because we worked in the retail sector, and how we equipped ourselves for that. Absolutely, you know, we won an award, so we did actually for keeping some of the big retailers working, which is commendable, and then trying to keep the IT infrastructure going all at the same time. You know, fantastic. I think we got a lot of respect actually out of it. I don't think we're out of it yet, to be honest with you. I think we're still, but how we've managed it pretty has been good. And I have to say as well, I don't think there was a lot of support coming from the enforcement authorities at the time too, so you were having to muddle around yourself. So I think it's really pushed on, you know, and I think businesses really see the value of their safety teams as a result of that. I really do.
Duncan, there's another question just came in, if you don't mind me asking, is how to be a role model if everyone else in your organisation doesn't care, how to smash this wall?
I think you have to keep at it. I don't know, I think you have to seek out, you know, your champions. I think you have to celebrate your successes. You know, I think you have to reward some of those successes and keep at it and keep at it. But at the same time, if people aren't interested, you have to make an example of that as well. So it's about that. You can be as consistent with the reward, but also be consistent with, here's what we're willing to accept as an organisation. I think that's important, and you'll soon define what's acceptable and not acceptable, and you'll alienate those people who are not wanting to come on the journey with you.
Okay, thanks, Duncan.
Duncan, I was just going to add, so I studied psychology, and that last question is very interesting to me because I remember one of the social psychology theories that we learned about was based around the idea of you have to find who the leader is in your organization, who do the other people look up to, and if you can get them on board with what you're trying to get across, so like if you can basically recruit them to be your messenger, then that can also help get the rest of them to follow you and your goals.
Well, it's the concept of behavioural safety, isn't it? ABC, antecedent behaviour and consequence, isn't it? I think that's so it's tried and tested. We know this,
Yes, situational leadership theory is another one, isn't it? It's the telling, selling, coaching, mentoring, and you know, letting people go crack on because they've got it. So
absolutely. Okay, well, thanks very much for inviting me along. I really enjoyed that. I have to say I was a bit nervous at the start there, so apologies for that, but you know, you've got 70 odd of your peers on, it can be unnerving. So thank you very much, and thanks very much for posing the questions, team. Thank you.
No, you're welcome. Thank you very much for an informative talk as well. I think it's gone down well. Thanks, Duncan.
Great, thank you. Bye-bye, Mike.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Right, I need to go back to putting a screen back up, so hopefully everyone can see that again. It's just to let everybody know the next branch meeting should be the 9th of December at 2 o'clock, and how flexible is flexible working after COVID. Basically, we've got a panel of HR specialists that are going to come along to us and look at some of the new hybrid working systems and how they've approached it and managed it. So we'll see everybody back again on the 9th of December. Nothing further for me to say. Thank you everybody for attending. It's been great having you all on board, both branch members, national guests and international guests, and also Neil Catton, who is one of our vice presidents that sneaked into the meeting. And thank you very much for attending as well. Thank you everybody, and safe journey, safe whatever else there is you're doing. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.